Wix Studio, the platform for agencies and enterprises to manage clients and projects with max efficiency, sharing Wix's SEO tech to help you drive growth.
Fix errors, waste, and issues in a couple of clicks. Get alerted whenever you're off track. Sign up at trueclicks.com.
So today we're going to learn how to produce literally hundreds of blog posts or thousands of blog posts at a time, not get hit by any Google updates using programmatic SEO, but just using Google Sheets. So about myself, Becky has done all the introduction, but kind of a word of mention. Userpilot pretty much relies on SEO for its acquisition. So we scaled from 20K to around 210,000 monthly visitors in the last 2 years. And we're producing hundreds of blog posts per month, and around 40% of our content comes from programmatic SEO. So this is exactly what I will be talking about. And we implemented programmatic in late 2022 after actually being inspired by another talk at Brighton SEO by Mark Williams-Cook. And it led to 3 times higher conversion rate from these posts than from other posts on our blog. So now I'm going to spill the beans how to do that. But first, why are we all here? We're all content marketers and SEOs that want to produce more content faster and cheaper. But at the same time, we don't want to get hit by a Google update. This is actually Mark's post. So I'm going to tell you how to do that. Let's have a look at a quick agenda. I'm going to start from what programmatic SEO actually is and why you should consider investing in it. How to do your keyword research for programmatic, how to create the databases in just Google Sheets without any fancy tools or automations or any programming, how to create your blog templates also in Google Sheets, the formulas that link your databases with your blog templates, how to link it all together, and how to actually publish your content on your blog from these sheets, because they're not going to magically teleport themselves, unfortunately. Then our results from these roughly 1.5 years of publishing, and some final thoughts on examples and, how this dovetails with the Google updates and the concerns, of course, because scaled content, you're probably thinking about it. Am I going to get hit or not? Okay, so what is programmatic SEO? It has actually nothing to do with programming, but because it has the word programming kind of in its name, at first I was like super scared to even start researching it, because I know none of our team members on the content team actually have any programming skills, and I knew our engineers wouldn't be available to implement anything sophisticated. But then when I started researching a bit more after this talk at Brighton, I realized that you can do it without programming, because it's basically about creating scaled content using templates in bulk in a scalable way using automations. And that can mean, using any tools like Airtable or Google Sheets. And the benefits of that is that it's super, super scalable, so it's a lot cheaper. You just need a database where kind of all your content chunks live on all your different variables that you're covering, and templates of these formulaic posts with these variables that you're just swapping for the right content from your database. So that actually means it can give you more control. Because imagine, instead of updating 500 posts just because your tool's pricing has changed, or your competitor has changed their name, for instance, and rebranded, you don't need to look through your blog for these posts. You're just updating one entry in the database and just re-uploading your templates, and it all poof magically updates. So it also means, because it's cheaper and more scalable, you can invest in having better writers fill in your databases, and that can lead to actually higher quality. And it's, of course, a lot easier to manage. All right, why do it? Let's do some maths. Are you ready for some post-lunch maths? Yes? No? Alrighty, so let's imagine you have 2 databases. You have a database with a list of tools or your competitors, and you have a database with a list of use cases. And you have just 20 competitors, right? So you need to pay your writers for 20 database entries. If you produce a blog template following this keyword pattern, competitor 1 versus competitor 2, For instance, Ahrefs versus SEMrush, SEMrush versus Moz, Moz versus Majestic, etc. From these 20 database entries, you can already produce 190 blog posts at once, right? So that means your content is already 10 times cheaper than if you did it traditionally from scratch. But let's add 10 more entries to your use case database. So let's say you're going to be producing posts from a template competitor use case. For instance, Ahrefs for keyword research, SEMrush for keyword research, Moz for keyword research, Majestic for keyword research. That alone is going to give you extra 200 posts, right? 20 competitors times 10 use cases. Simple. But let's add another template into the mix. Competitor 1 versus competitor 2 for use case. For instance, Ahrefs versus SEMrush. Which is better for keyword research? Ahrefs versus Moz. Which is better for links tracking? You name it. So with these 30 database entries, 20 tools, 10 use cases, you can already create, let's do the maths, 2,290 posts for the price of 30 database entries. So that's 76 times cheaper. I hope that encouraged you to keep on listening. Okay, so as I said, we need two components to make it work. The databases with the content on all your variables and the post templates where you will be swapping the variable text for the content from your databases. First step, as usual, you know it, you need to do your keyword research though. Right? So you need to know which variables you're going to be using in these databases. So first, you list all your keyword combinations that are following these formulaic patterns that I've already given you examples of. For instance, competitor versus competitor, competitor alternatives, your tool versus competitor, best tools, all these listicles, that works like magic. Best tools for use case, best tool for a persona. And then you put in your keyword combinations, so these formulaic template keyword combination, and all the variables that you have listed. So all your competitors and all your use cases, basically into ChatGPT, and ask it, how many unique keyword combinations can I produce with this template, with this keyword pattern, and this list of variables. That will give you an idea which templates you want to create first, because they're going to yield the most blog posts, the most unique keyword combinations from your databases. All right. And then you actually need to create your databases. So it's going to be a separate sheet in Google Sheets where you're going to be listing all your variables in your rows, and then all the criteria, you will be comparing these variables to each other in your columns. So for instance, for tools database, it might be general tool description, the dashboard image, pricing, pros and cons, reviews of this tool, etc. This is an example of our database in Google Sheets. You can download some examples and this whole presentation from the blog that I'm attaching somewhere in the bottom margin. Yeah, so as you can see, this is written in HTML. I'm going to explain why at the end. Right, and then step 3, you need to create your first post template. So just as with writing any blog post, you're first going to research the keyword combination that you chose for your template in SERPs. So you take the first combination of your keywords, for instance, Ahrefs for keyword research, and you see what's there in SERPs, and you create the outline of your post. You can actually Google a few of these combinations, so you can see what is like the optimal outline for this post, or you can use your content intelligence tools like Surfer, ClearScope, whatever, to do that. You write down the outline of this post, and then you write the copy of your post. So you actually write the first post, but there is one catch. You replace any variable specific, so tool specific information with the variable name in, say, curly or square brackets. So this is an example of our intro to one of these formulaic templates, looking for an effective use case tool and wondering if tool is the best option for your SaaS company. La-di-da. And then when you actually have the actual content, so for instance, tool description, right? Pros, cons, review of the tool. Again, you swap the actual Ahrefs review for just tool review in square brackets, because you will be fetching this review from your database using simple Excel formulas. So this is an example of our template in these Google Sheets. you can see basically kind of how it's structured. So the post template here in the headings, so headings and paragraphs are basically going into the columns of this post. So you essentially write the post horizontally instead of vertically. In the first row, so the header columns, you put in the outline of your post. So each column is a different heading, is a different image, is a different paragraph of your post. And then in the second row of your post, so all the rows of your template sheet, you'll actually have the content of this post with this formulaic template text and the variable text inside formulas. These are going to be substitution formulas, VLOOKUP formulas, and index match formulas that are going to be swapping the variable text for the variable name or the actual content from your database. So you actually need 3 types of columns in your template. So the meta text columns, here you're going to list your variables, and these are going to be filled in manually, and that's the only thing you will be filling in manually in the templates. And you also need like the meta stuff that you usually have in your CMS, so meta title, meta description, slug, author, keywords, etc. Then you are going to have the content columns, as I already mentioned. You fill them in with the headings, the paragraph content, the images, everything that goes into the body of your post. And finally, you will have one last column, the content output column. This column is concatenating all your content columns into one cell, and this is what you will be actually uploading into the body of your post. Right, so now how do you fetch the information from your databases into these variables in your template? You use formulas, as I mentioned, regular Excel formulas, and I'm just going to breeze through them because otherwise it's going to turn into a class in Excel formulas, and we don't want that after lunch. Alrighty, so as I mentioned, the variable columns are filled in with your variables manually. So in each row, you list all your variables in the respective variable columns. So for tool 1, tool 2, use case, you fill these in manually in each row. This is your keyword combination that is going to dictate which content is fetched from your database using the substitution, VLOOKUP, and index match formulas. Substitution formulas are simply swapping the variable text for the actual variable in the template. Here is an example. And then if you need to bring up a whole chunk of text from the database, like the tool review or the pros and cons, or the whole image, which is already living on your blog because this is fetched in HTML from your media library, you are using VLOOKUP formulas if you have a single variable. So if it's just a tool description or a tool image, you use this formula. So essentially to look up the content of your variable column, in this case E2, that's cell where you have the tool, right, in your template. And it fetches the information about this tool from column 6 in your database. Right, so that's the 6 at the end here. Because that's in column 6, you have the general tool description, for instance. But if you have a combination of 2 variables, so for instance, you want to fetch the image of this tool, but only for a specific use case. For that, you need an index match formula. So it's going to search for the content of cell E2 in your template, in your database, in the rows, and then it's going to search for the content of cell I2 in your template, which in this case is the use case in the columns of your database, and it's going to meet at the intersection, so it's going to bring you up the description or the image for a specific feature of this tool that lives in your database. All right, that's what it looks like in real life. And then finally, we have the content output column, which is basically the easiest one, is the concatenate formula. So it just lumps all the content columns together in the same order. And that essentially creates your whole blog post in one cell, which you're then importing into your CMS with a plugin, if it's a WordPress blog. Right, so the catch is you need to write both your template and your database inputs in HTML, but it's very easy to do because you can just ask your writers to write them in, your basically visual editor in WordPress, and then you fetch the HTML from the code editor. And you input all your variables, as I mentioned, in the rows of your database and your template, and that's going to be fetching the right content from the database. And then once you have filled in your templates and your databases, you download the CSV file from your template and you upload it to your, in our case, WordPress blog. And we're using the import WP plugin for this. There are tons of plugins for that. Import, export, WP import, export. You basically just need to find a plugin that allows you to import the CSV file. And then you have an easy wizard, which is walking you through the rest. So you're basically plopping the content of your content output column into the body, the meta columns with the slug, the meta description, the author into the respective meta columns in your plugin. And then you're clicking next. It imports all the rows from your template for all the different keyword combinations, and you're done. You have just imported hundreds of blog posts to your blog at once. You can leave them in drafts and have, a proofreader have a final look if there are no formatting issues. If your database has been formatted correctly, there shouldn't be, but it might be. Okay, we have 4 minutes left. Let's look at our results. So I was writing this kind of mid-March, so probably we have a few hundred more now because we're intensifying our programmatic efforts. But as of the time of writing, we produced roughly 550 blogs that way. We had 16,500 visits and 23 demos since June 2023, actually, which was the time where a botched website migration has wiped out our universal analytics. So that's a topic for another Brighton SEO talk, but not today. And yeah, these posts have roughly 1.15% conversion to demo rate, last touch, as opposed to 0.08% from our overall blog. So we're quite happy with the conversion rate. It has not been a traffic play, right, as much as a conversion play, because these are all bottom of the file keywords. Of course, this depends on what you choose to write about. And the total cost was around $32,000. So divided by 550, that gives you roughly $58 per blog post. So very happy with this. And now, what about the Google updates? Right, so as I mentioned, it all depends on the quality of your database, right? The quality of your content. So if you actually spend more money on filling in your databases and you leverage these higher margins to dedicate more effort to it, the content is going to actually be higher quality than if you were to just write it all manually from scratch, and you also have more control because, you don't rely on 10 different writers and their kind of moods, etc. And it is compliant with the helpful content update because the content can be actually very, very helpful. And the fact that you're recycling some parts of your content between different blog posts, I don't think it really matters because the pricing of a specific tool doesn't change depending on the context, right? So as long as the context is relevant and each search intent, each combination of your keywords is unique, you're going to produce helpful and relevant content, very, very relevant content, because you're fetching, the right use case from your database at the fraction of the cost of regular publishing. And there are, of course, some examples of really, reputable large sites that are using programmatic SEO, which I'm going to dive into now. For instance, Trainline. That was another talk at Brighton, I think 2 years ago, maybe last year. That was also really inspiring for me. Creating all these keyword combinations, like how to get from London to Paris, how to get from Paris to Brussels, how to get from London to Nottingham, right? Including information about the destination, the ticket price, the timetables. Definitely very helpful content. Would be super hard to create it all from scratch and then to update it, right, if the train schedule for one city changes, for instance. Canva. If you type in any keyword combination plus template, you'll probably land on Canva's programmatic pages with the templates. And the classic Zapier, all the integrations of different tools you will Google, you will probably find Zapier integrations pages also produced programmatically in your results. So that's it. Hopefully this was at least a little inspiring for you. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions or you want to contact me and chat about programmatic SEO, I would be very happy to. Here are some resources. You can download the presentation and some templates for programmaticseocontent.io. And yeah, looking forward to chatting with you after the session. Thanks.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.
Demand Sphere. Limitless visual insights from the SERPs. Unlimited dashboards and users. Easy to use and easy to scale your growth to new levels.